Holy City Center Radio, this is episode 381, and I am your host, Christian Sanger. Today is Wednesday, June 11, 2025. Hello, everyone. Welcome to the midweek edition of Holy City Center Radio. I hope your week is going well so far, and things in your world are fantastic. Things are good here. On Sunday, I recorded the podcast episode, and then a little bit later that evening, headed out to the Isle of Palms to the Windjammer, which I haven't been to in at least a year, but maybe 2 years now, and I'm thinking about it. But in any event, went out there for a concert on the beach. Had a lot of fun. Better Than Ezra played. For those who don't remember them, or were not born, or what have you, they had their biggest set of hits, and their best run was kind of like the mid '90s to like 2005. They had a couple hits here and there. One song, "Good," was a big hit in the mid '90s period, and was in some movies and things. And some of their other songs were too, and they're kind of a fun poppy alternative band. It's weird to say poppy alternative, but that's kind of what they are. It was fun. I've always kind of wanted to see them, and I've listened to more of their songs now than I did back then. I just was like, I'll check out some more by them, because I just kind of knew the radio hits. And so over the last few years, just learned more about their catalog and was really hoping they'd come around at some point. So it was a fun event. If any of you were there, I'm sure you enjoyed the show as well. They played those same hits, some songs I didn't know, of course, but they also had some covers that they threw in there. So it was a lot of fun. They did like a medley of covers too, so it wouldn't even be like the full song, so that was kind of a neat thing. Usually if you see a band doing a cover, it's just one song all the way through, but they were like mixing things together that sounded good, as one song. So it was a lot of fun. But anyway, outside of that, I don't think too much going on. Just doing work and all that good stuff, and trying to stay dry with some of these rain and thunderstorms that have been coming through. I hope you guys have been staying dry and weren't among those that lost power on Tuesday. We had that kind of early afternoon storm. But anyway, without any further delay, let's get into the latest news. Unfortunately, we have to start with some sad news. TJ Phillips, who was a beloved Charleston radio personality, died on Sunday, June 8th. That's this past Sunday. It was announced by Charleston Media Solutions, which is, the parent company of the most recent station he was on, 92.5 Kickin' Country. He was on in the mornings as part of the TJ and Jessica morning show. They've been doing that show since November of 2016. And the release said he passed away peacefully on Sunday. So obviously sad news regardless, if you only knew him from, the radio, or if you didn't know him, of course. We don't like hearing things like this, but for those who knew him, myself included, I didn't know him extremely well, but I did appear on that morning show I just mentioned several times pre-pandemic. I would come in and talk about some news stuff, events that were going on. So, I'd spend a good amount of time with him, and for that matter, Jessica Chandler, who I knew before that show as well. And he was always just super nice, super kind, always seemed to be in a good mood when I would be in there. And of course, very professional. He had a great voice, like one of those voices you're like, oh yeah, that's a radio voice. And he was really talented at his job, and he was good. Like if he was interviewing you, he'd make sure that you look good, and if he knew when to jump in and when not to when you were talking, and just always made me feel super welcome when I was there and at ease. And when we would talk not on the air, he just seemed like a really kind and funny and just a good guy. And I ran into him a couple of times, at events and things. Same thing. He's just wondered how you always wanted to know how you were doing, and would just talk about whatever you wanted to. And he would just make you feel like you were like a very important person. It didn't matter who you were or how well he knew you. He made you feel like in that moment he really was invested in what you were talking about, and that's on the air and off. So I hadn't seen him in a few years, unfortunately, but we follow each other on social media, so I would see his posts and things, and of course hear his voice on promos and on the radio and all that. So he'll definitely be missed. Just a really good guy. My heart goes out to his friends and family and those who knew him. What I just said is kind of what I'm hearing and reading other people's reactions around the community. And for those who weren't familiar with him or didn't know the background, just he had such an impressive career. Number one, recently he was inducted into the Lowcountry Music Hall of Fame for his support of the local music community. He was a big champion of local acts of all different genres. So that's a really big honor for him. He's also won Best Radio Personality in the Charleston City Paper and Mount Pleasant magazines, Best of Charleston, Best of Mount Pleasant, the awards they do. The show he does with Jessica has also won Best Local Radio Show in the City Paper. And they also were named the South Carolina Broadcasters Radio Show of the Year. So just, obviously very talented and well respected within that field. He also is a 6-time Addy Award winner in the area of audio, feature, commercial production, and copywriting. So just talented, not just on the mic, but doing things behind the scenes that you don't necessarily think about when it comes to radio broadcasting. And he was a big champion of numerous charities, particularly the Charleston Animal Society and the MUSC Shawn Jenkins Children's Hospital. If he wasn't talking about music, he was probably talking about local charities and local events, and just someone who was very much enmeshed within this city and its culture. And yeah, it's a very sad day that we all had to say goodbye. It's a big loss for the community for sure. So definitely, like I said, heart goes out to his family and friends. And it's tough even for, again, I'm sure some of you may never have met him, but just how it is when you hear somebody on the radio or see somebody on TV in like the local market that's on for years and years and years. If you listen, they become something a little bit different to you. So I know a lot of people are feeling this loss as well. All right, so the Holy City, and I'm just talking about Charleston, its community, its culture, and one thing that a lot of people will talk about with Charleston in this area is seafood, of course, and shrimp is a big part of that. Of course, we have shrimpers, and restaurants are always advertising fresh local shrimp. And then, of course, we have places like Crosby's, where you can go get fish or shrimp or whatever straight off the boats, coming in, that you can go cook at home or what have you. And, when people come here, we have all sorts of different kinds of restaurants, but a lot of people want to know about the seafood scene. And a big part of it, like I said, is being like, hey, look, we're right on the water. A lot of this stuff served is fresh from our local fishers and shrimpers, crabbers, etc. Or not crabber, I guess crabbers. Yeah, I guess that's the right name. And or oysters is another obviously big thing. And people, we all like that. When you're on the water and wherever you are, you want the freshest seafood possible. And other places, it's, a little bit more difficult. And then we also know there's ebbs and flows within the restaurant industry, whether it's costs or if there's issues with supply chain or whatever it may be, that sometimes they have to, get food from other sources. Now, that's not a problem unless they lie to you about it being local when it's not. If say you asked them and they're like, oh yeah, it's local and it's not, that's not right, of course. And in that same vein, if they're advertising fresh local shrimp, on their menu, on their signage and their windows and advertisements and stuff, with no kind of caveat, that, oh, well, sometimes we have to get other kinds. That's a big problem too. And apparently, based on some new testing that was done, and I'll give you the details here in a moment, there is a very pervasive problem of shrimp fraud here in the Holy City. I know it seems silly. It is in a way, but it's also pretty serious in other ways. As serious as food can be when you're telling your customers one thing and it's not the truth. That's a big deal in that arena. And so here are the details. From May 19th to the 22nd of this year, a group called, I believe it's pronounced SEAD Consulting, it's SEAD, and you may remember me talking about them doing this testing, and now we have their results. So they were commissioned by the Southern Shrimp Alliance. Yes, that's a real organization. And they had them conduct genetic testing on shrimp dishes that were served at 44 Charleston restaurants. I didn't say specifically if all were in the city proper, or West Ashley, the islands, but it seems to be a mix of Charleston area, the greater Charleston metropolitan area. But in any event, they tested 44 restaurants using this thing called RIGHT test, which is Rapid ID Genetic High Accuracy Test, and then they shorten it to RIGHT test. The testing determines whether restaurants were serving authentic South Carolina wild-caught shrimp or imported substitutes. And the results kind of bleak. Out of those 44 restaurants tested, only 4 of them were found to be serving genuine domestic wild-caught shrimp. 4 out of 44. That is not good at all. I expected we would be surprised by these numbers in some fashion, but I did not think it'd be this bad. And again, these are restaurants. Well, I'll break it down for you too, so you know that it's how these restaurants are advertising and things. So let me do that first. So the remaining 40, so we had 4 that had wild-caught shrimp. Of the remaining 40, they were misleading customers either in their branding, menu descriptions, or proximity to local docks, with 25 of which were found to be outright fraudulent. So that's important. The 44 restaurants were chosen based on something that was showing local caught shrimp or local shrimp, so it wasn't just, hey, we went to this random place that never said they were serving local shrimp, and they're definitely not. These are places that in some way, the whole proximity to local docks is a little, if the restaurant isn't saying for sure that they're serving local shrimp, is that really that bad? I get it. If you're by a dock and there's shrimp boats right there and you're in a place known for local shrimp, I certainly get the leap they're doing there. But, I don't, that's a little, I don't see that as egregious. It's not great as the other ones. So in any event, 44 restaurants that advertise it in some fashion or on the water, only 4 actually had local shrimp. The rest were found, to be misleading in some ways, and then in their own words, 25 were outright fraudulent. So these would be the ones that are like heavily advertising local shrimp in some capacity. Not just like their branding kind of alludes to it. These are just outright, we have local shrimp, we serve local shrimp, and they were not. So bad across the board. Now, and by the way, they made a note. Some of these restaurants even reference like shrimp boats or like Lowcountry heritage, whether it's the name or on their menus and things like that, while they were serving these foreign imports. And so what's the issue with the foreign imports? And because some of you are like, whatever. Yeah, they shouldn't lie about it. Well, again, not a huge issue, but foreign imports can be raised in unknown conditions. And foreign imported shrimp is not monitored in the same manner as U.S. producers and not held to the same accountability standards. So again, this isn't to say imported shrimp, especially from another country or something, isn't safe. It's just they don't have the same standards as the U.S. So a lot of people, if you told them, would you pay a little bit more, for shrimp that is meeting U.S. standards? I'm sure you would. And would you pay a little more in addition to that? They're coming from, you're at a Charleston restaurant, they're coming from South Carolina waters. Yeah, but a lot of people would pay a little bit more because that usually is the pushback. We'd have to raise prices if we use local shrimp and so on and so forth. All right, so let's talk about those 4, right? Because those are the heroes of this story. Now, this important note that while these 4 are definitely serving wild-caught shrimp, or at least they were during the testing period, this is not to say they're the only restaurants doing so in this area, because they're not releasing the list of the 40 that didn't have local caught shrimp, and they didn't test every restaurant. So these 4 aren't necessarily the only 4, but of those 44 restaurants, these are the ones that were serving local shrimp. The Coosaw Creek Crab Shack, which is on Dorchester Road in North Charleston. Grace and Grit, which is in Mount Pleasant and on Wingo Way. Rappahannock Oyster Bar, which is on East Bay Street, part of the cigar factory kind of complex. And then the Acme Lowcountry Kitchen, which is on J.C. Long Boulevard out on the Isle of Palms. So those are the 4 stars of this study, the only ones that had local caught shrimp. What's going to happen with the other 40? Well, this consulting firm is going to send letters to those restaurants, and just urge them to either switch to domestic sourcing or update their menus to reflect true origins. And yes, follow-up testing is planned. Now, is this illegal? Well, the Federal Trade Commission has deemed that restaurants giving the what they call the quote net impression of serving local seafood while providing imports instead is misleading and illegal. But this is one of those things, like, how often are they going to go search this out? You know how many restaurants there are around this country? It kind of comes down to what local groups will do. Yes, the FTC could swoop in randomly if a restaurant is getting complaints. So it is possible the feds could get involved. But really, again, it comes down to local authorities. And currently in South Carolina, unlike some other coastal states, we don't have anything to ensure that restaurants have transparent labeling and they're telling the truth about the origins, whether it's shrimp or oysters or whatever. So there isn't really a law. Yes, it is technically illegal according to the US government, but don't expect them to become coming to these 40 restaurants and shutting them down or finding them or anything. It's very unlikely. And since there's nothing here on the state level, they don't really have to do anything. So until laws change, the groups that did this testing, they told people in Charleston, like, they were urging them, hey, ask where the shrimp comes from and request proof, because of course they could just say it's local. They even said you should demand to see the box from the kitchen. Now, if you want to go that extra step, go nuts. I don't know if I'm doing that, and I don't know, restaurants, again, doesn't seem like they have to let you do that either. So, but hey, if they're willing, you are okay asking that and they're willing to do it, go nuts. And then if you do, you want to look for words like wild caught US or something about South Carolina sourcing. That would be on the box. Outside of that, of course, you can contact lawmakers and, request, hey, we should probably get something, at least a little something. Nothing, we don't want to like shut down restaurants or anything crazy, but we should get something about transparency laws. That's another thing you could do as well. But the biggest thing is just, if you are in a restaurant, ask where the shrimp comes from, especially if they're saying it's local. And, just, you can take that extra step from there if you want to. So, yeah, I was shocked by those results. I thought there'd be some surprise, but I didn't think it'd be that bad. Interested to hear everyone else's takes on that. All right, got a couple updates for you. Remember, there was a pilot program that offered to pay some CC or some Lowcountry students or families for perfect attendance. Well, that whole program is ended, and now the school district in Charleston County is starting to discuss how to move forward. So the Charleston County School District, aka CCSD, shared its initial results from that incentive program. If you don't remember, it paid each member of the student body at certain schools and grade levels $25 per week to go to class. The pilot was applied for 9 weeks in the spring 2025 semester, and it ran specifically from March 10th to April 22nd. Well, so what were the results? District staff reported an increase in attendance equal to 2.7 extra school days, or 17 hours more per instruction, or more instruction per student. Elementary schools, including E.B. Ellington and W.B. Goodwin, saw the most significant increases. Attendance among high school students in grades 9 through 11 also improved, but it did decline among seniors. Meanwhile, middle schools saw smaller changes. You can see the full list of schools and the grade levels that were selected for the study via the link in the show notes. I'm just giving kind of a quick overview here. So the district said this is the first time students within what's called the pupils in poverty category are attending school at the same rate as those who do not experience barriers. In 6 weeks of initial findings, the student group is experiencing 1,774 additional days of instruction compared to previous years. The district also reported that Hispanic students and English learners were among the students most affected. So that seems like good. It was a short pilot. Who knows over the length of a school year, but that's encouraging to see that these students were going to school more than they were on average. Now, for those who don't remember, and if this program were to move forward, and be expanded to all schools, all grade levels, et cetera, students would receive a designated debit card with limited uses if they achieved perfect attendance. At least that's how the pilot program worked. We'll see if they do move forward, if that's how they continue to do it. So during the week, during each week during this test pilot, if a student had perfect attendance, they would get money on this, designated credit card or debit card, rather. Excuse me. The cards were tracked through apps and website databases to show where they were being used. So, according to the study, some were stacking incentives to pay bills, while others used the money on groceries or transportation. So, again, they're using these on things like everyday essentials, paying bills, groceries, transportation, whether it be Uber, buses, or what have you. And for those wondering, any money that's not used will return to the fund balance, and will be reappropriated on June 30th, and the cards will be closed out. So they do have to use it by the end of this month. So the district is considering whether to continue this initiative into the future with a $225 per student allocation. Leaders said they're waiting on academic achievement results from READY and MAP testing and have not learned whether attendance rates increased, dropped, or remained neutral after the pilot ended. So they're going to look, okay, how did the attendance go after this pilot? How did our testing go? And then they're going to make a decision from there. But again, promising results, an interesting and unique way to try to encourage attendance. I'm sure other places have done this, but I had never heard of it before. So I'm kind of interested to see where this goes. But again, promising so far. One last update from the Charleston County School District. They did recently vote to move forward with its new policy about after the abolishment of the county's constituent boards. You may remember last month, the Charleston County School District leaders announced that they were establishing a path forward after Governor Henry McMaster had signed a decision, and it became, he signed this into law, so it wasn't a suggestion, that effectively ended constituent boards in Charleston County. The law goes into effect officially on July 1st. So for constituent boards do a few different things. They're different than the normal, school district board. They handle things like disciplinary hearings and some other things as well. But that was the main concern. If we're doing away with these constituent boards, who's going to handle the disciplinary hearings? So instead of this board, there's an Office of Investigations and Compliance that will now help manage those situations. Disciplinary hearings would first go to a hearing panel made up of 3 members. One of them would be a community member, so doesn't have to be like staff or anything. After this step, if a parent is still unhappy with the decision or is unhappy with that decision, they can appeal to the CCSD Office of Investigations and Compliance. And this is in place of the former constituent board, as I mentioned. So the superintendent, Anita Huggins, said that they will do a review of the student's record and render their decision from there. If there is still parental concern, a parent can then appeal to the Board of Trustees, which is the board that you are more commonly familiar with, I'm sure. At the June 23rd meeting, so in a few weeks, these new policies will move to the first reading by the Board of Trustees. So it's not officially in place yet. It's moving in that direction. If you have opinions on either way about that, you can, there's public comment opportunities at these school board meetings. And the last story, it's a quick one. Let's end this on a good note. Just kind of a fun story, especially if you're a fan of the series Outer Banks. It's been a hit on Netflix, and pretty soon you might see signs of production being back underway in the Lowcountry. Yes, this Netflix-backed kind of started as like a teen drama. I honestly haven't watched anything besides the first season. I don't know how it's really evolved, but they're now into their 5th and final season, and it has been popular regardless of what genre you would categorize it as. This was confirmed from multiple press reports as well as multiple cast members posting on social media that they're coming back to the Charleston area soon. As I said, this hit show has been streaming since 2019. It's also been a nice steady source of employment for some of our, film industry people, some that are in the Charleston area or, up into North Carolina and down into Atlanta, because also things filmed there in both of those states. And it's been a pretty consistent source, just like the Righteous Gemstones. When you have a series coming back season after season, it's certainly good for anybody who works in that field. So who knows where they'll be filming? That information's not out there, but you may soon see production stuff going on. And yeah, so it will be the final season, as I mentioned. So that is a little bit of sad news if you're an Outer Banks fan, but I'll be sure to post about. They do a lot of casting, background actors and things. So if you would want the chance to possibly be in the show, just go to holycitycenter.com. I will frequently post when they're looking for extras and other things. Sometimes they request cars to be placed on set, and they'll pay you for that. And there's some other opportunities that tend to pop up, and I'll certainly keep you posted. That'll do it for this edition of Holy City Center Radio. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Lindsay Marie Collins with LMC Soundsystem for producing this and every episode of Holy City Center Radio. And thank you to Tyler Boone, whose music you hear in each and every show. I hope you have a great rest of your week. I'm already looking forward to being back with you. Have a great next few days. Ask that local restaurant you're at if their shrimp is local or not. And I'll be back soon. Until then, good night and good luck.